Good day, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're dissecting two very different regulatory jurisdictions, UK and Australia, for those wishing to transfer UK pension to Australian superannuation. I'm Michelle Nevitt and my co-host is David Banks.
Pension transfer is arguably the single most complex financial task for a UK expat in Australia.
We're talking about moving a UK pension fund into an Australian superannuation scheme using what's known as a QROPS or Qualifying Recognised Overseas Pension Scheme.
And this deep dive is essential because we're not just talking about moving some money from one account to another. It's far more complex than that, with crushing tax liabilities if you get it wrong.
Two different sets of rules and compliance challenges. HMRC in the UK on one side and the ATO here in Australia on the other.
Righty. And our mission today is to help you cut through the red tape, highlight the correct approach while flagging the pitfalls. Because if you get the timing wrong or the residency or the contribution limits, the penalties are dire.
An unwitting mistake could literally strip away up to 55% of the money you're trying to move. The stakes couldn't be higher. So before we map out all those dangers, let's define the QROPS.
Okay, let's go.
QROPS is the UK's mechanism that lets transfer your pension tax-free from their end.
Oh, good-o.
But only if the fund here in Australia meets these really strict HMRC conditions.
You should think of QROPS as the certification.
Okay.
QROPS tells HMRC that the Australian super fund is legitimate and all that tax relief you got in the UK isn't just going to evaporate.
Okay, so let's put ourselves in the shoes of someone planning their retirement here. Why would anyone even attempt this? What are the benefits that justify wading into this bureaucratic minefield?
Well, the main driver really is the incredible long-term tax advantage. People often call it the best of both worlds.
So why is that?
You get all the generous tax incentives on your contributions when you were working in the UK, but the crucial part is once that money is successfully in your Australian super fund, any withdrawals you make, they're generally tax-free.
As long as you're over 60.
As long as you're over 60 and meet the conditions, yes.
Okay.
You're moving from a system that taxes your retirement income to one that, for the most part, doesn't. That is a huge win.
It's a phenomenal incentive. But let's pause on the transfer itself. If I have a UK pension, let's say it's worth £300,000, does the ATO or Australian Taxation Office look at that whole amount and think about taxing it?
That's a great question. And what's interesting is the Australian Tax Office doesn't really care about the money you earned and saved before you became an Aussie resident.
Okay.
They only care about the growth that happened after you landed here. This little slice is called the applicable fund earnings, or AFE. So they'll tax the growth in the fund's value between the day you became a resident and the day the cash actually hits your super account.
If you'd like to know more about cross-border pensions, please like, comment, share and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes.
Okay, so moving on to AFE.
AFE is the interest earned while your money was sort of in limbo after Australia became your home.
It's the Australian sourced gain, and that's the bit that the ATO is interested in.
Okay, so beyond tax, there's another huge benefit. And I think this is one people really underestimate until they've lived it. It's currency risk.
Oh, this is absolutely critical for anyone who wants some certainty in retirement. If you leave your pension in the UK, every single payment you draw is at the mercy of the pound to Aussie dollar exchange rate.
It can fluctuate by more than 15% in a single year, which makes proper budgeting almost impossible.
So bringing that money over, putting it into a dollar-denominated fund, removes all that uncertainty.
Now we know why we do it. Let's get into the weeds, the hurdles. Let's talk eligibility in this QROPS gateway. What are the basic age rules?
The big one is you must be over 55 to access and transfer your UK pension benefits, rising to 57 from 6 April 2028. That's a hard rule. It's tied directly to the UK's preservation age, and you generally need to get it all done before you turn 75 to avoid a whole other set of complications.
That 55 rule is so important, and it leads us straight to the next problem, the Australian fund itself. You'd think any big Aussie retail or industry fund would do, but they don't anymore, do they?
No, almost none of them qualify as a QROPS. Now, this is a classic case of a clash between two countries' rules.
What's the clash?
The Australian hardship rules. Aussie super funds can, under very strict conditions, let you access your money early for severe financial hardship, sometimes long before you're 55.
So Australian law says maybe, but the UK's core rule says absolutely no access before 55.
Precisely. And because the Aussie funds have that flexibility built into their rules, they automatically fail the UK's strict preservation test. So HMRC says, nope, you can't be a QROPS.
So that wipes out almost every standard super fund. What's the solution then? How do people actually do this?
Today, the only common and viable path is to set up a self-managed superannuation fund, an SMSF.
And even then, it's not straightforward.
No, the SMSF's trust deed, its legal rulebook, has to have very specific special wording added, wording that legally blocks access and overrides those normal Aussie hardship rules. That's how you prove to HMRC that you'll obey their rules.
And before we move on, there are some UK pensions that are just a hard no, right? You can't move them no matter what.
Correct. This list is absolute. You cannot transfer government unfunded pensions like NHS scheme, teachers, civil service.
All the big public sector pensions?
Yep. Also, you can't transfer a company pension already in drawdown or if it's in the pension protection fund or any annuities you've already bought and of course your UK state pension. But they can all be paid to you here in Australia.
Okay, now for the scary part, the UK tax traps. Let's start with the big one, the Overseas Transfer Charge, the OTC.
The OTC. The standard charge is a flat 25% of the entire amount you transfer. That's the default.
A quarter of your pension just gone. How do you avoid that?
To avoid that huge hit, you have to meet one key condition. You must be resident in Australia, the same country as your QROPS at the time of the transfer.
So residency is the key, but I'm guessing UK HMRC doesn't just take your word for it. Is there a catch?
Yes, a huge catch, and this is probably the single most important detail in this whole process. It's the 5-year residency lock-in.
5 years?
If you move away from Australia, the QROPS location, at any point within 5 full UK tax years after the transfer, that 25% OTC is applied retrospectively. HMRC claws it back from the original transfer value.
Wow, so you are committing to staying resident in Australia for 5 years?
That's the deal.
And that's just one side of the lock-in. You risk 25% if you leave, but there's an even worse trap if you stay and find yourself in financial trouble, right? This is where that 55% penalty comes in.
This is the ultimate catch-22. So recall, to get QROPS status, you had to set up an SMSF with special rules to block early access.
But Australian law still allows you to apply for early release on hardship grounds.
If you access those QROPS funds within that 5-year monitoring window, even for a perfectly legal ATO-approved hardship reason, HMRC can turn around and call it an unauthorised payment.
Because it breaks the no access before 55 promise.
It breaks the promise, and that triggers their highest punitive tax charge, up to 55% of the amount you took out.
That's wild. So to get this straight, you're trapped. There's a 25% penalty if you move, and a potential 55% penalty if you touch the money for an emergency.
For 5 full UK tax years.
That basically makes your transferred pension completely inaccessible for half a decade.
Yes. Your capital is held hostage by 2 different governments.
Okay, let's rewind to the planning stage. For defined benefit schemes, the UK forces you to get advice. Tell us about the £30,000 rule.
Okay, so if the cash equivalent transfer value or CETV of a safeguarded benefit is more than £30,000, which it almost always is,
then you are legally required to get appropriate, independent advice from an FCA authorised professional in the UK. You have to do this before the transfer can even start.
Okay.
And the logic here is to protect people.
Yes. It's to make sure you understand you are giving up something very valuable.
Right.
A guaranteed inflation-proof income for life. That's a huge decision.
But here's the issue, isn't it? There's a gap in the advice. The UK advisor is only looking at the decision to leave the DB scheme.
Okay.
The advice about where the money is going in Australia, the SMSF, the investment strategy, that's totally separate.
And that creates this jurisdictional gap in consumer protection. You're well protected on the decision to give up the UK pension, but there could be a huge gap when it comes to the quality of the investment advice here in Australia.
Which just screams for the need for one integrated advisor who gets both sides. Okay, UK tax traps navigated. Let's talk about the Australian landmines from the ATO. How is this money treated when it arrives?
The ATO sees the whole transfer as a non-concessional contribution, an NCC, so it's like you're putting your own after-tax savings into super.
And all super contributions are capped.
Very strictly so, and this is what catches so many people out.
So what are the caps? What's the bring forward rule?
For the 2024-25 year, the standard annual cap is $120,000. Now, for a big UK pension, you obviously need more room, so you can use the bring forward rule.
Which lets you do what?
It lets you use 3 years worth of your cap in one go. So up to $360,000, as long as you're under 75.
Okay, 360,000 sounds like a decent amount, but the ability to use that rule isn't guaranteed. It all depends on your total super balance, your TSB.
This is the landmine. The ATO looks at your total super balance on the 30th of June of the previous tax year, and if that balance is at or above $1.9 million, your NCC cap is immediately reduced to nil.
Wait, say that again. If I have 1.89 million in my super, I can put in 360 grand. But if I have 1.9 million, my limit drops to zero?
Yes, zero. It's a brutal, unforgiving cliff edge. If you are at or over that threshold, you cannot transfer a single penny from the UK without copping a massive penalty tax for excess contributions.
The moral, you must plan years ahead. You might need to manage your super balance down before you even think about the transfer.
Okay, pre-planning is key.
So what about that growth component, the applicable fund earnings or AFE? How do you handle the tax on that bit?
So recall the AFE is just the growth since you became a resident. The ATO gives you a choice. You can have it taxed at your personal income tax rate, which could be 47%.
Ouch.
Or you can elect for your super fund to pay the tax instead at the much lower concessional rate of just 15%.
Everyone wants the 15% rate. What's the catch?
Two very strict conditions. First, you must have been an Australian resident for more than 6 months when the transfer happens. And second, and this is critical, you have to transfer your entire UK pension interest in one go. If you only do a partial transfer, you lose the option.
No toe dipping?
None. You're stuck paying at your highest marginal rate.
Let's touch on regulatory vigilance. HMRC has gotten a lot tougher on checking pension transfers, mainly to stop scams.
Yes, since 2021, UK trustees have to carry out enhanced checks overseen by the pensions regulator. It's all about stopping pension frauds.
So what's a red flag? What makes a trustee just say no?
Mandatory refusal is triggered if, say, the member won't provide basic info, or if they admit they were cold called, which is illegal, or if they were offered some kind of cashback or incentive to transfer.
And what about the next level down? The amber flags, which don't stop it but add a step.
An amber flag is raised if there's any suspicion of high risk or unregulated investments in the new scheme, or if the fees are high or unclear. If that happens, you must attend a mandatory safeguarding appointment with a group called Money Helper before you can proceed.
We've covered so many traps today, the residency lock-in, the TSB cliff, but the real takeaway seems to be the need for integrated advice and planning.
Absolutely. You need a specialist cross-border advisor, someone who gets the UK's FCA advice rules and the ATO's contribution limits, the TSB trap, the AFE, all of it.
Because getting one bit wrong can derail the whole thing.
And many of these decisions are irreversible. You make the wrong move and that's it. Your goose is cooked.
Remember, you're trying to satisfy two completely different jurisdictions that are both laser focused on compliance. You need meticulous planning and professional advice.
This is a life-altering endeavour, not just an admin task.
Summing up, transferring your pension locks you into a 5-year Australia residency commitment to avoid that 25% tax penalty, and it also makes that capital totally inaccessible for those 5 years, even in a crisis. To avoid a 55% penalty, this creates an effective 5-year illiquidity rule.
So how does zero access to a huge chunk of your own money affect your sense of financial security, even as you start a new life here? That's the vital question to ask yourself. Thank you for listening.